So today I'm going to show you exactly how I built this research agent using LangChain code and how you can too. This agent basically goes away, scrapes the web, brings in all the information, and then provides research on any topic question that you can possibly have. And then I'm going to show you how to actually integrate it into a product that you can probably sell like this. We're going to host the project as an API, and then we're going to integrate it through Zapier into a worksheet. So you can start doing research on any of your leads. For instance, here we pass in a name and a company, and we get a bunch of research back. So in this video, this is what we're going to cover. So we've got basically 5 steps here. We're going to build out the tool for search, the tool for scraping. We're then going to create the LangChain agent. We're going to use Streamlit to host the web app. And then we're actually going to use Fast API to turn this code into an API, host it, and then use it in a Zapier automation. But first of all, I just want to go over the top level of exactly how this works, right? So we're going to have a question. This question is then going to hit our research agent, and this research agent is going to have access to a bunch of tools. So it's going to have access to a web search, and then it's also going to have access to a web scraper. So the web search is basically to go out and find all the links, and then the web scraper is to go and actually get all the data off that page and then bring that back into the research agent. And the research agent is going to keep iterating these steps until it has enough research that it can actually satisfy the objective, i.e. the question, and then it's going to pass this output back. And then what we're actually going to do is we're going to take this research agent, we are going to host it as an API, which will then allow us to query from any sort of interface. So whether Google Sheets or your own CRM, whatever sort of lead list you want, we can connect that to Zapier, and then we can Zapier that to our API. So how do we actually build this? Well, first we need to do a bunch of imports. I know this looks like a lot, but don't worry, just copy this. We also need to get our API keys. So we need browserless API and a SERPer API. So SERPer is going to be the web tool to basically get the links, and browserless is going to be the web scraper. So SERPer is this Google search API. You can just go and sign up for free tier. You're going to have to do the same for browserless, and you're also going to need an OpenAI key. Once you've got those, you need to come to this .env file and place these keys in. And that's what this basically does. It just loads the .env and places these in. Also, later on when you're uploading to Git, make sure you use a git ignore so you don't upload your env file like I did to your GitHub and then have to go and stop all your keys because you've realized how much of an idiot you were. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is just do this search. So basically, we're passing a query into this search. It's going off to the URL. We're just structuring the JSON here, putting in the API keys, and we're getting a response. So if we run this, so search latest news on Meta, and then this is what we get back. Basically, we get a JSON of all the different search results. So we get the title, we get the link, and then we get a little bit of snippet of what this link probably contains, which is really useful for our research agent when it's deciding what links I should go and have a look at, because obviously it's not going to go and look at all these links. So this is pretty simple. Now we need to create the tool for actually scraping, so going to the site, getting all the relevant data, getting it in the right format, and so we can pass that back to the agent. Okay, so this looks like a bit more code, but it's still pretty simple. Basically what we're doing here to the scraper, we're passing it an objective and the URL, right? So the URL of where we want to go, and then also the objective, which is going to be the query, so the question, what are we trying to answer? So here we're just creating some headers, making the data, we're doing the post here, getting in our API key, getting the response back. And then this is where we're doing some of the data analytics, data cleaning, because what it basically does is just return the whole HTML page. And we don't want to be just putting whole HTML with all the tags, all the JavaScript back into the chat GPT, which is one of returning all the text that's on the screen. So we use this Python library, Beautiful Soup, which has a really nice HTML parser. What we also do as well, because this takes out the HTML, it doesn't take out the scripts or the styling tags. So a lot of HTML will just have like embedded scripts. We take out the scripts and the styling, so we decompose that, and then we get all the text out. So if we just want to test this here and say let's find a nice link. Let's use this link, and the goal was, what was the goal? Latest. I spelled that wrong. And then we're going to want to we'll print it there. So if we run this, we basically get back a bunch of text, as you can see here in the terminal. We really should probably take out the white spacing, but it actually doesn't really matter. It doesn't count as a token to these large language models. This is probably just a terrible website to use, because a lot of these websites have a bunch of other information on the sidebars, like stock prices and stuff. So this is what's happening here. But I'll show you how we actually just get rid of that, or tell the AI to not use that. Right. But the issue here is, what we're going to get is some of these web pages are going to be really big, especially if it's a blog. It's, it can have a couple thousand words, and obviously we can't pass that into a prompt, so we can't pass that back into our research agent because it's going to fall over. These large language models have a context length, so the amount that you can pass back in. So what we need to do is somehow either store or summarize this data, and there are really two ways to go about it. There's something called map reduce, and then there's vectorization. So I have gone over vector databases in another video. You can look at it here. But for this one, I actually want to show you guys map reduce. So this is basically where you break it up into a bunch of chunks, and you put each one into an LLM, and you get the large language model to get all the necessary data, filter out all the rubbish, and reduce it. So basically a summarizer. So how do we do that? We do this with this summary function. Again, looks complicated. It's not. Basically what we're doing is we're text splitting. So again, this web page may just be way too big to summarize as a whole, so we might need to split it up a little bit and summarize each bit sequentially. So what this summarizer, basically we're using a summary chain. So this is a LangChain already built out chain for you, so we don't need to build our own summary chain. Basically it will take it or break it up, summarize each of the components, and then pass all of those components into another summarize. So think of it as like sort of a tree. So it splits it down and then summarizes it all the way back up. So yeah, so we're basically splitting it. We're then giving it a prompt, basically telling it what to do. So we need to say, write a summary for this objective. So this is why it's important to give the objective into this one, because it needs to know what it's summarizing for, like what is the important data on the screen. We're also telling it this text is scraped from a website, so it will have a bunch of useless information, right? Please do not summarize this, only summarize relevant info. We then pass it the text, and then it will give out the summary. We put that into a prompt template, and then we put that into the summarize chain as well, and then we get the output. So if I uncomment this, because we've implemented it now, and I take this and run this here, and I print this. So here we go. This is the summary. So this is a huge website, but it basically summarizes it. So this is obviously, if we look at the link, macro trends. So this is just a bunch of charts. So it's saying this tech provides information on the PE ratio of Meta platform, blah, blah, blah. P ratio of 30.97. So it's pulling out all the relevant info. However, there's no relevant to the topic of Meta in this result of the text. So this will be able to summarize like all the necessary info to answer the question. So now we've basically got the two tools. We now need to connect that to an agent. So how are we going to do that? Okay, so this is a bunch of code, and let me explain this through. Let's delete that function call. So it's probably better to start down here, so where we instantiate the agent. So basically when we instantiate an agent, we give it a bunch of lists. So we give it the tool list, what language model to use, what type of agent this is. So this is an OpenAI functions agent, which basically is specifically trained to be told like how to use certain tools, and it will be able to use those tools and output the right responses. So the large language model, we're just going to use the GPT 3.5 Turbo, which is this 613. It's the specific language model base, so don't try this on another one. There's a GPT 4.0 version of this as well. We have some buffer memory, and then let's have a look at the tools. So how we're building this tool. So we've got two tools, and we're implementing one simply and one a little bit not simply, and I'll explain why. So this first tool is just the search, right? So this search function is super simple because we're only just giving it one query, right? So we can just define search, we can tell it the function to use, and we describe it. So we're saying this is useful for when you need to answer questions, and you should have targeted questions. So this is going to go away and find all the links. So this description is useful because it will tell the agent will see this and it needs to decide on which one of the tools to use. So it's really important to get this prompt right. We're not doing anything specific here because of it's such a simple function. It already knows that it's just going to need to pass like the one thing in. However, for the scraper tool, because we've got two fields and they're different, we need to basically tell ChatGPT, like, this is how you use this function, and this is what this code does here. So this is just a class for the input. So we're defining a field, which is the objective, and we're telling it what the objective is. So the objective, the task the user's given, and then the URL. And we're saying this is the URL of the website. So it knows what to put in each of these fields. And then we pass that into the scraper-based tool, which is basically just an expanded version of this. As you can see, we've got the name, we've got the description, so useful tool when you need to get data from a website URL. And then we pass the schema, right? So this is the schema, i.e., like, what are the inputs and what should I put into these inputs? And then we're just showing, like, and then on run, this is how you do it. You call, we've got all these inputs, and then call this with the objective and URL. And hopefully the agent will see all these descriptions and be able to put the right inputs into our function. And then this is the last sort of really important part, is the general system message. So this will be the prompt that the large language model sees like every time right at the top. This is just telling it like what you're actually doing. This is all the magic of this agent. So we're saying you're a world-class researcher who can do research on any topic. Then this is what you need to do. You need to make sure it's as much information as possible. You shouldn't make things up, blah, blah, blah. You should include all the reference links, show where you basically got all your answers. And also the most crucial part is like we're only doing it for 3 iterations. And you can change and play around with this number to see how. So this basically will mean it will only go to 3 different websites. It will choose the best 3 websites and it will go to those websites. Obviously, it's returning, our search function is returning a list of 20, 30 different websites. If we go to all of those, scrape all that data, it's just going to take way too much time and also cost money for our API calls. So we only want this to do it 3 times. So this is it. Let's test this. To test this, we're actually going to use something called Streamlit. So Streamlit is we need to come here, undo that. Streamlit is a really simple front end that you can plug these, that you can just use to quickly get your application up and running. They also have a hosting service, which is quite nice. So we can start this by running the command streamlit run app.py. Make sure you need to pip install all these libraries as well if you don't have them. So this will give us a text box. So what is the latest news on Meta? And then it will go away and do the research. And here we go. I had to change the question there if the response wasn't too great. It just pointed me to a bunch of sites saying, here's all the sites where the information's at. So, you might need to do a bit of prompt engineering with this. But here we go. So we got, Meta Quest 3, Audiocraft, Meta platforms, and VR headsets. So yeah, this has threads as well on it. So it just shows you what are the latest products from Meta. And you can do this for everything. So really here you can stop and you can use this code to start building out your own platform. Say you want to have an automated Twitter tool. You then take the output from this research agent, you pass it through another chain get that to output a Twitter thread or a bunch of tweets, and then connect that to the Twitter API or a tool that allows you to connect to a Twitter API. And with just maybe you can add a button here with a one-click publish, it just sends all those tweets to your account. So that is really how simple it can be to completely automate stuff now. But what I'm going to do is now I'm going to show you how to take it a step further and how to actually host this application as an API so you can query it from anywhere on the web. Okay, so we're going to use something called Fast API. This is just, as it says, a really fast way to build out an API. Just make sure if you're going down this road, you either comment out all your Streamlit code and also your Streamlit import at the top if you're actually doing the hosting. Otherwise, it's going to give you a bunch of problems. So this is super simple code. Basically, we're just giving it an app.post endpoint, passing it. We're not passing it that many variables. We're just passing it a query and getting it an output. So a really good way to actually test this is basically we'll just create our own test API here. So first of all, we need to host this. So basically the way you start this API is unicorn app. This first app, just to let you know, is the name of your Python file. And then the second app is just app. That's always app. So if you've named your Python file main, you need to change that to main. And then it's starting the server, and we're starting it on localhost. So grab this URL, shove this in here. We're then just going to create another terminal, and let's run this code, and hopefully we will hit our API. So if we have a look in the other terminal, yeah, here we go. So it's already starting doing stuff. Let's just wait a little bit, and hopefully we'll get a response. There we go. So this is a response. So now we know this API works. We need to host this API somewhere. You can do this in lots of different ways. The Fast API already has a very good sort of hosting platform, but what's pretty easy is to use Render. I use Render to host all my flows. So this is what I did previously. I'm just going to show you how to do it now. What you want to do firstly is create a Git repo of all of your code. Make sure to include a git ignore of your .env file, and also ignore your test server. You don't need to upload that. You come to new, you come to web service, you find your repo. Let's connect this, put it into a name, and then for this, you need this special command. So this is actually how you're going to start it here. You don't want to do your localhost command because you want everything to be able to hit this endpoint. So copy this and put this into the start command. Just go onto the free. The free basically shuts down after 15 minutes of not use, and then it will spin up once it actually gets the request. So it might be slow after you don't use it for 15 minutes. And then you hit create a web service. So I'll just show you basically what you want to do. You want to start spinning that up. And then the other thing you want to do is come into this environment, and you need to put in your 3 keys and the Python version. So the Python version, this is super important because some of the packages won't install if you don't use this Python version. So use 3.11.2, and then put all your other API keys in here. So now that'll take a little while to start up, maybe 10 minutes to actually get running. Come here, grab your URL. You want to come here, you want to change this, and let's run this. So here we go. You can see it's working already in the render console. And here we go. It's giving the output. So this is now working, and anyone can start making a API call to it. So now to actually get this hooked up to your Google Sheets or your CRM, this is sort of where you can start making a lot of money and charging your clients to do this integration. So basically what I've done here is I've just created a simple name and company. A lot of your videos on YouTube will show you how to do it, like if you have a website, but this allows you to do it if you don't have a website and you're not specifically searching a singular website. You're searching the entire web for these people. So say this is just a lead list that comes in. What we want to do here is do a zap. And this is a pretty simple zap. Basically connect your Google Sheets. So the event is going to be a new or updated spreadsheet row. Put your account in, you want to put your sheets, whatever your sheet is, and then the trigger column is going to be both. So I've put this as the name and the company. You can just put it as the company, whatever you want to trigger this on, and then go through, hit test, add something into your spreadsheet, and it will pull those through. So let's do that now. Richard Branson. If you've got Richard Branson as a lead list, you're probably doing pretty well. So let's find new record. Hopefully it's pulled through. Yeah. Okay, here we go. So it's pulled through, Richard Branson, and the company is Virgin. Let's continue this selected record. And then we want to do a webhook. So we're going to do a post, which is basically, hey, go get me some data. The action is going to be to your URL. You want the payload type to be a JSON. And if we take a look here, this is how we're going to structure this JSON. Pretty simple. It's just a query and then whatever the query is. So the data is going to be query. And then you can put a bunch of text in. So research this person named Richard Branson. He is currently at this company. You don't need to change any of these. Keep these all the same. Continue. That's what I tested earlier. So let's retest this. So here we go. So it's come back with a bunch of stats about Richard Branson. Let's continue. And then we're just putting it back into Google Sheets. So we're going to update a spreadsheet row. Let's come here. Continue. Continue. We want it in Researcher Sheet 1. What we can do here is, if you take a look here, it also gives you the row number. So we obviously want to put it back in the same row as the name came from. So make sure you put that. Or if you want to add a search step, you can basically search where you want to put it back in. And then name, we don't want to enter anything on name. We don't want to enter a company. We want to do it on research. So let's continue with that. No, let's refresh fields. Let's continue. Retest that action. And if we come here we go. So we got Richard Branson, and we've got all the information about Richard Branson here. And obviously, this is probably not the best way to format it in a Google Sheet. You can do it through your CRM or whatever. You can tailor the prompts to give you really, really short answers. But this is very, very helpful, say you want to, before you get on a call with any of your prospects, just to get a bit of background info on them, and you don't want to go away and do all your research. Also, what you could do is, if you have a big lead list, this is sort of where you can start charging a ton of money for this, is say you have a lead list of 1,000 prospects, is you go away, use this research agent to do all this research, and then you pass each chunk of research into a chat, another agent, or probably just a chain with your product, and like, who is the best customer for your product, and then you can automatically find the people that are going to be the best fit for your product, and you can narrow it down to like a list of 10 or 20 that you can then go and cold call. And so instead of cold calling the 1,000 or sending emails out, you can specifically target the people that your product is going to be targeted for. And once you set this up, you could just do this automatically for thousands and thousands of leads. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. This is a super expansive space, and it's going at breakneck speed. So if you want to take an hour of my time, get on a call with me, either go through some code or some business ideas you'd like to validate, I've got a link in the description that you can go and book that. Or if you're a company that wants to work with me to build out a solution, I've also got my email in the description.